Greetings, this is Dyslexy from the Arma community group Shack Tactical. In cooperation with Bohemia Interactive, I'm creating a series of videos to explain some of the basics of Arma 3. In this video, we'll be talking briefly about the Arma 3 Alpha, what it is, how it's evolved and improved, and perhaps most importantly, what comes next. I'll also take a look at some of the community content that's been created, as well as discuss the new content in the just released beta. To start, let's recap a few things about the Alpha. The Arma 3 Alpha was released March 5th, and it's important to note that this isn't a marketing gimmick as with some titles. It's an actual work-in-progress game where things can still be tweaked and influenced by community feedback. The full game's release is scheduled for the third quarter this year. Prior to that, however, there will also be a public beta test. The beta takes things a step past of where the Alpha's gone, introducing more aircraft, armored personnel carriers, a new faction, and more weapons and gear. From there, we'll move on to the full game, including the entire content library, the single-player campaign, more missions, and the much-anticipated Altus terrain, which weighs in at over 270 square kilometers. That's the future. Let's talk some more about the present and the recent past. Arma 3 aimed to take the potential of this series and further broaden the appeal and usability by smoothing out the rough edges of the prior games. To reflect the broad range of environments in the game, a new stance adjust feature has been added, which allows combatants to adapt to the situation at hand by raising or lowering their stance. If you need to get low to avoid fire, you can do so. If you want to return fire, there's no need to peek up more than necessary to shoot. Speaking of shooting, you can now swap out modular gear on your weapons to include suppressors, sights, and flashlights or infrared lasers. This new modularity extends to your equipment as well. Glasses, headgear, vests, uniforms, and backpacks can all be swapped out to tailor your character to the mission at hand. Infantry also find themselves able to use grenades in a much smoother manner. Beyond that, we see a new tool added to the infantry's toolbox, namely underwater diving. Equipped with a rebreather and a supercavitating underwater rifle, a diver unit can infiltrate from the sea and take the enemy by surprise. With the infantry well taken care of by these enhancements, let's look at the environment. Arma 3 features a vastly improved lighting engine, as well as revamped shadows that render out to longer range. The colors, high dynamic range rendering, and shadow enhancements serve to make camouflage more authentic, as well as provide more opportunities for players to remain concealed in situations that previously would have left them exposed and vulnerable. Staying true to the Alpha concept, we've seen continual tweaks, refinements, and even wholly new features as time has passed. The stance adjustment system saw a fleshing out with the addition of new poses, such as being able to step lean with your rifle transition to your opposite shoulder, or lay on your side in the prone and scoot back and forth to fire around corners, as well as a stance indicator added in response to community feedback. One very visible change is the introduction of a new method for rendering fog. The result on gameplay is sublime, making fog a far more viable and interesting component of mission design than in the past. Arma 3 finally sees the retirement of the series' basic Seagull spectator mode. This permits a dead player to easily view the battle's progress through various camera modes, offering greater control and representation of what's happening in the mission. For those with an eye for photography, the Splendid camera was released and explained in detail. This robust system allows for any aspiring war photographer to get great results with a minimum of time expended. These are just a sample of the changes that have been introduced during the Alpha period. One of the greatest factors to longevity in the Arma series has been its approach towards modding. The Alpha took that and ran with it, allowing people to create new mods as well as port prior mods over to the new engine. My personal favorite of all mods created since Arma 2 is the Advanced Combat Radio Environment mod, known as Acre. This introduces a full fidelity radio simulation, and the impact on immersion is dramatic. There are so many aspects of Acre that can be used to tailor the system to support your gaming, and I couldn't imagine playing without this mod these days. It's truly fantastic. Next up, we have All in Arma, a configuration mod that takes the concept from Arma 1, 2, Take on Helicopters, and Operation Arrowhead, and allows it to be used in Arma 3. This is a really welcome idea. The simple fact that you can now use Cherners, Serani, and Takistan, and the other islands from previous games is pretty cool. It's good for backwards compatibility. There have been many mods created or ported over to Arma 3, from fantastic unit textures like Saber's Army and Marine reskins, shown here, to cool touches like Tau Senai's tactical map, here. There are weapon mods, vehicle mods, retextures, and that's just the mods. The mission scene is bustling, and there are hundreds of single-player and multiplayer missions already out, with far more on the way. Not to mention the possibility of publishing and acquiring missions via Steam. Wasteland, Stratus Life, Invade and Annex, the list goes on and on. Moving on to the just released beta, let's take a look at some of the additional content that's added. First off, an entirely new faction has been introduced. We'll call it the Green Army for now. These soldiers are clothed in a woodland digital camo pattern, distinguishing them from the existing Blue 4 and Op 4 uniforms. Along with the new faction comes a variety of new gear. On the weapon side, the Bullpup Mark 20 has been introduced as the Green Army's battle rifle, with the Mark 200 being moved from an Op-4 weapon over to the Green 4's automatic rifleman. To replace it, Op-4 receives a Zephyr as their new machine gun. Some machine guns have also shown up in the form of the Vermin and Scorpion, both firing 9mm rounds, and well suited to close quarters combat. Weapon attachments see some attention as magnified weapon optics become fully 3D rendered to include both battle rifle scopes like the Arco and ACO, as well as the SOS sniper scope. The Titan MPRL has been brought in to offer infantry a better chance at taking down aircraft. A shortened variant's been introduced as well that's intended for anti-armor usage and has a fire and frigate capability, as well as the option for manual guidance. On the vehicle side, Blue 4 and Op 4 receive attack helicopters. The AH-99 Blackfoot for Blue, and the Mi-48 Kajman for Op 4. Both have rocket pods and a turret-mounted cannon, with the Blackfoot having anti-air missiles and the Mi-48 sporting anti-tank missiles. The Mi-48 is also able to carry a number of troops with it, reminiscent of the Hind of earlier years. In the air, we also find two new transports, the UH-80 Ghost Hawk for Blue 4, and the CH-49 Mohawk for the Green Army, each capable of lifting a squad or more into combat. Ground vehicles show up in the form of the Green Army's Strider MRAP, Blue 4's HIMT Transport and AMV APC, and the Merid Wheeled APC for Op 4. Rounding things out are the Swimmer Delivery Vehicles, known as SDVs. These small submarines give diver units greater mobility, increasing the options for their employment. Aside from the new content, a number of additional challenges and scenarios have been included. Key amongst these is the Combined Arms Showcase, a single or multiplayer scenario that embodies the spirit of Arma 3's design, as it places you in the role of an air-mobile infantryman involved in a large-scale multi-pronged assault. There are also new firing drills that introduce a non-combat competitive shooting sport that allows you to hone your skills in a variety of range challenges. A perfect match for the improved controls and stances of Arma 3. After a successful alpha period, with the release of the beta, Arma 3 is well on its way to a strong launch later this year. Thanks to everyone who has participated and shown their support throughout, whether that be through feedback, suggestions, bug reports, or through the creation of the sort of mod and mission content that's given the Arma series such replayability and longevity over the years. The shores of Altus aren't so far away now. For more community guide videos, be sure to subscribe to the official Arma 3 YouTube channel. For other Arma 3 updates, keep track of the official website, Facebook, and Twitter pages. If you'd like more in-depth tutorial and large-scale multiplayer gameplay of Arma 3 and the previous Arma games, I'd also recommend you check out my personal channel here. This is Dyslexy, and I'll see you on Stratus.